Okay. Welcome back to another episode of the Chiropractic Student Podcast. Today we are joined by Jonny Coller. You might know him from the Chiropractic Y podcast, and he's talking to us today from Spain. Thank you so much, Jonny, for coming on the show.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So first of all, as I ask everyone, could you give us a little bit of your background in chiropractic, why you got started, where you went in terms of studying, and also what you're up to nowadays?
Yeah, cool. If I babble on, and I actually mean this, please just intersect, because I think like everyone, we all like to chat about ourselves.
Yeah, of course.
I ended up at ACC. I graduated in 2012. I don't really have one of these incredible chiropractic stories of how I sort of ended up being a chiropractor. I was fortunate to be playing rugby in New Zealand and kind of figured that playing rugby for the rest of my life wasn't for me. And at the time we had a family business that I didn't want to go to work for. So I had to choose a course that would finish me in some sort of job rather than just like a geography degree or something. Mm-hmm. I'd seen a chiropractor who had helped me when I had a back injury playing rugby. And I thought that it seemed a bit like a physiotherapist. And that was pretty much about as much as I knew by the time I signed up. I do remember having an interview at the college the year before I went there. And I'd kind of literally Google searched a couple of things before I left. And I was chatting about vertebral subluxation and stuff like this. Not that I had a clue of what they were, but I'd seen them online. And I remember some very perplexed faces in my university intro. But I ended up at college. ACC was an interesting place. But halfway through, I suppose, I kind of started to realize there was a lot more to chiropractic than the college was really letting on. And also, whenever somebody explained what they meant as chiropractic, the logical sense of it seemed to make a lot more sense and clarity in my mind than what I was getting spoken to at college. So I sort of started to sort of fall in love with this thing called chiropractic through outside influences and WCCS and meeting lots of people. Then ended up working a couple of places after college, learning lots, ended up in Spain running a place. And then now I spend most of my time teaching chiropractors and chiropractic students how to communicate chiropractic better, to see more people and serve more people, and to really understand the thought process behind chiropractic. So chiropractic philosophy, also known as the why of what we do. So that's pretty much where I'm at now.
Nice. That was really compact. Well done.
Yeah, well, I try my best.
No, it's really interesting. So I'll backtrack to a few things that you mentioned there that kind of, I think, if I was a student, well, I've only just literally finished, but in my head, I'm thinking straight away, like, why this? So you mentioned at ACC that you were finding things that made more sense outside of the academic structure.
That's very
within chiropractic. Yeah. So what were the things that you were looking at?
So again, like most things in life, you kind of fall into things. At my time at college, I was quite involved with something called WCCS. I'm sure it's still around. I kind of signed up because I heard that if you could get selected or whatever the process was at the time, you got a trip to New Zealand. So in my head, it was to go back to see my friends in New Zealand. And I went to this seminar and there was a lot of different individuals from different colleges, and to see their understanding of what chiropractic was compared to mine, how passionate they were, how clear they were of the role, and how vital they thought they were to society and their communities. It was like a real juxtaposition, a real contrast to the way that I saw it at college, where, and I hope it's a little bit different, but it was very, very dull. There wasn't a lot of inspiration and people didn't really seem that excited about chiropractic. And I was like, I kind of want to do something for the rest of my life. I want to be really excited about it. So I got a couple of book recommendations from them, became friends with a couple of them, started sort of building some relationships and chatting through what they understood chiropractic to be and what they were taught at their colleges. And I just started reading, listening to lots of audio. And, you know, particularly in my first 2 years out of college. When I left college, actually, I sort of made a decision that I was going to try and go as far away from the college model that I'd been to just experience it. Maybe like in my head, I was like, I'm going to do this for a couple of years. Maybe I really don't like it. Maybe it's not for me. And maybe I need to return back to the way that the college has sort of taught me to be a chiropractor, quote unquote. So I went to this open practice place and worked for this incredible lady, a Canadian lady who's since returned to Canada. But it was a real eye-opener. I saw lots of things that in my sort of college mentality wouldn't really make sense. Saw some amazing results that people get under chiropractic care. And I suppose through that, on top of having read a lot, I started to sort of answer these questions in my head of what is it that we actually do? Why do we do it? Why does somebody get some great results? Like, why does this change? Why does that change? And then from there, sort of, I got really interested in a real basic question of like, what makes somebody a great chiropractor? So I spent a lot of time listening, going observing chiropractors and just figuring out why one person could have such an impact on a community and why somebody else could be sat somewhere struggling to fill their week. So it was all sort of intertwined into one. And then looking back, I can really see the difference when I started understanding the philosophy of chiropractic and being able to communicate that, how different my practice became, the difference in the growth, but also how happier I was at work, how not easy, but clearer, how I found things clearer, how some questions before I'd be a little bit uncomfortable with. And then I had a real confidence in the understanding that I had and explaining that to people, and to the point where people could understand it easy enough and get behind it. So people were getting better results, staying under care and following recommendations. And it made a big change for me. And I think overall, when you start enjoying things, then you become passionate about it. And then eventually it's sort of like this cycle that passion feeds excitement and excitement feeds passion. And when you're in that place, it's really good fun. So that's kind of where I've tried to stay for the last 10 plus years or something.
That's really key. Like, I like that, how they feed each other. Excitement feeds passion, passion feeds excitement. It's so true.
Yeah. But then there is also the other side of it. And particularly with chiropractic, there is a lot of grunt work, is almost the best phrase to say, that needs to be done. It's not all, particularly when I was at college, had an opinion of what I wanted to do or how many people a week I wanted to see or the changes that I wanted to see in people I was seeing. Then you get out to college and you realize how big the gap is between working in the student clinic and the reality of real-time people that are coming in that have to pay a set fee. And it's very, very different. And there's a big, big gap. And when you realize that there's that gap, there is a lot of grunt work that needs to be done. So I'm not just saying it's all excitement and passion and fun. Unfortunately, there is a lot of just sitting down, working hard. However, I'm very lucky with this thing called chiropractic, that if you do the right things, and success leaves footprints, so you haven't got to reinvent the wheel. But if you do the right things, you in a couple of years, you can really, really develop and get to a point of really understanding and enjoyment within this amazing profession.
Nice. I mean, if you need any more inspiration, like, you haven't listened to what Jonny has just said, that is like a really nice paragraph of just pure inspiration of how to get passionate about chiropractic. I love that. A few things. So you mentioned
it's fine if you're not passionate about chiropractic as well.
But is it more fun if you become passionate about chiropractic?
I think it becomes more fun, but also there is, like within any profession, there's going to be people that embody that profession and they're super excited about it. And then there'll be people that are doing it as a job. Now, for me, if you want to be successful in it, I think it's very hard to be successful doing a job of a chiropractor. I think it's doable and extremely achievable if you become a chiropractor, and chiropractic is something within you and it becomes something that is really important to you, and then it echoes through lots of different things in your life. I think that is down to the individual, and there's nothing wrong with being either of those, but obviously one is going to enjoy the hard work a lot more than the other. and one will definitely get better results in the end than another.
Well, that's like chiropractic. One person sees it as chiropractic as a 9 till 5 pays the bills, and flip it on its head and becoming chiropractic, and it, instead of it being a job, it's a way of life, which I think it is. Like you be chiropractic, you don't do chiropractic, you be it. Which is trying to get that point across is quite hard, because you have to, in a way, it's essentially practicing what you preach. Like I can sit here all day and say, oh, it's really great tips from Johnny. He says to go and do this and that. And if none of us did it, that would be doing chiropractic rather than being chiropractic, in my eyes.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one, and it's a question that I've sort of chatted about with a lot of people. I think a lot of the inspiration for a lot of chiropractors, and me included, is the reality is when you see the difference that it can make in people's lives, I find it hard not to be excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, ultimately, most people that become chiropractors, they like to be personal. You know, we're personable people. So when you can understand the difference that it makes in somebody's life, it's a really enjoyable place to be. Now, obviously, there is some bad stuff as well. But when you can really apply chiropractic to the people in front of you, and you can provide a service that they can connect to as well and understand, the results are phenomenal. And it's hard not to be excited about it. Mm-hmm. Also, I do remember the other side of the coin, being in my like final couple of years and hearing the exact same sentences that I'm saying to you guys and being like, well, that doesn't fucking help me now, does it? Are we allowed to swear on this, by the way?
Yeah, of course.
I apologize if I offend anyone. I occasionally swear.
It's okay.
I think it's a really weird one as well, because once you become more passionate, you get better results, I think. And then you start seeing better results, which again makes you more passionate. But again, maybe we're back to the chicken and egg of excitement and passion, but who knows? But that's not hard. A ramble to get us back to where we were.
Yeah, that's not hard to understand with the whole concept of like manifestation as well, though, is it? Once you understand that, because
yeah, I think a lot of it is like anything in life. When you're good at something, you want to be better at it.
Yeah.
And when you become better at things, you're obviously just going to get better results. And chiropractic isn't like anything else. There's a huge amount of stuff to learn. And if we, you know, the college can take you so far, and the rest of it is your responsibility and what somebody wants to do with their time, what they want to do with their life. So, but the opportunities in chiropractic, I mean, I wouldn't want to do it any other way. It can be so much fun, which is hard to even realize sometimes when you're in the deepest, darkest hells of neurology exams, or I don't know, some lecture where you've got 45 different highlighters because the lecturer wants all these different colors. I mean, it's hard sometimes when you're at college, but you know, this is honestly like such a fun and exciting and enjoyable profession to be in. And the stuff that I know even you will see, or anyone listening in, you know, like this has been happening since, you know, the best start of early 1900s with loads of these different chiropractors. So if everyone else can do it, you guys are no different. And if I can do it, you guys can certainly do it, because I assure you, you're far more intelligent than I'll ever be.
No, don't discredit yourself like that. Okay, so one quick thing I want to circle back to just briefly is just the WCCS is, for those who don't understand, it's the World Congress of Chiropractic Students. I think it is like a connection for all students to basically get in touch. And like you said, there's a AGM, an annual general meeting, where a lot of the colleges have delegate students. They meet up somewhere worldwide. It's a really awesome thing to get involved in, because even if you don't become the delegate that gets to travel, it's a huge community where you get to connect to students, and a lot of them are going to become really great chiropractors. And it's just great to have that connection to a lot of other chiropractors out there. And like you said, you learned so much from going to the WCCS as an external education kind of thing, and just to learn. So I just wanted to quickly give a little.
WCCS is amazing. I really encourage every student to get involved in it. I mean, sometimes it can feel a bit like the model UN without really going too much into it, but
yeah,
I think it's just one of the biggest things whenever I'm chatting to any student. Like, if there was one recommendation, it would just be to get outside of the college bubble.
Yeah.
Whether that's observing chiropractors, going to different seminars, joining WCCS, going to events. If you can get out of that bubble, you can experience other things, and maybe certain ways that things are explained or certain different techniques resonate with you more. And if that's going to end up with you being happier in life and serving more people, I think it's super important. And the other thing is, you don't realize how much time you have as a student, which again is a really patronizing thing to say, because I'm sure prior exams, you guys are working harder than anybody, but generally you have so much time to utilize. So trying to get out of that bubble would be a huge one. And like I said, WCCS for me was amazing for that. And I'd always recommend people do it.
Lovely. So you spoke about the change that you went from when you finished university and then going out into practice. You found your chiropractic why. You were diving in and basically going headfirst into this kind of what you weren't taught at university, maybe a little bit, is how you put it. In terms of resources to help students maybe get like a foot up on you, let's say you started this kind of journey after university, if there's like a year 1 or 2 student, even 3 or 4, if there were a few bits of resources that were really pinnacle for that, I don't know, that injection of passion and spirit and extra understanding for the chiropractic profession, what would those few resources be, and maybe like a little bit why?
Yeah, I mean, there is so much
I know
out there, which is amazing. I think, in fact, I remember sitting down and breaking chiropractic and myself as a review and saying, like, so chiropractic is a philosophy, art, and a science. If I was to grade myself on those, where would I be? Which would be my weakest? Which would be my strongest? And then I sort of looked at chiropractors that I wanted to become, and I would sort of kind of grade them in the same way and be like, wow, they're really strong in this. Maybe they're not the greatest adjuster or whatever. And it was very clear to me is I had no real understanding of explaining chiropractic. I wasn't clear in my mind. And I'm sure a lot of people listening will end up in this. Part of my first job, I had joined, it's like a BNI, it's a business network. They have meetings in the mornings. It's like a breakfast club for people with businesses, and they all help each other out. And I had to do a 5-minute talk on chiropractic. And I remember being petrified and almost like confused to what I was even going to say to explain it. So a bit of the drive for me was I realized how little I knew, and having reviewed it, I just didn't know anything about philosophy. So that was really where I dug in. So there's some amazing books. A book I recommend by Joe Strauss called The Philosophy of Chiropractic, a really easy to read book. I think that's still available as well on Amazon. There's a great book by Rob Sinnott that's The Introduction to Chiropractic Philosophy. I think that's on Lulu as well, for about 20, 30 pounds. And then outside of that, I basically would beg, steal, and borrow anything. So any talks from some of the greats, Reggie Gold. There's an amazing podcast online that you guys, if you type in The Valley of the Blind by Reggie Gold, there's a podcast. And at the end of the podcast, there's a recording of this speech, amazing speech that he gave. And have a listen to that. Have a listen to online. There's some BJ Palmer lectures.
Yeah, on YouTube, Reggie Gold, that Valley of the Blind is there just in full on YouTube as well.
Amazing one to listen to. I literally would just try and read anything that was on chiropractic that seemed interesting to me. But if I was to say 2 books to start with, those would be my 2. And for the majority of people, it will, particularly when you come out of English colleges, and I was the same, like I really struggled to even say vertebral subluxation. Like I'd been that trained by a mentality that like I struggled to say it, let alone even explaining to somebody why I would have to see them X amount of times over X many weeks. It is like a real big journey. And outside of reading the books, the recommendation is just to realize, unfortunately, there's a big gap, a really big gap. And like, even though chiropractic is amazing, and with all the tools that you've been given at the moment from college, you will see some amazing things and you're going to change some amazing lives. But if you can hone that down even more, the axe certainly becomes a lot sharper, and that's when you'll really start to see some huge differences. So just study, read. I mean, those 2 books, I would listen to any audio. I would be listening to podcasts. I mean, you mentioned earlier, we have some podcasts where we get some chiropractors on to try and share it, but there's loads of amazing chiropractic podcasts. I would do anything. I had tapes in my car. Was back in the day of a really bad CD player that when you went over a bump, it would stop.
Yeah.
So it was all good. Yeah, just anything. But like I said, it's almost like if you can be self-aware and review yourself, you kind of see where your weaknesses are pretty easily, or where your gaps in understanding are. Fortunately, the problem is sometimes you don't know what you don't know. However, when you start to read some other books or start chatting to other chiropractors, it becomes pretty clear what you don't know and what you really need to brush up on.
So what I'm rounding this up a little bit. So a big sense of community, getting outside of the education system and just observing, talking to chiropractors, people that you see that you like what they're doing, and in your local area, just going out and getting out there, listening, and basically surrounding yourself with chiropractic, whether that is in the case of friends in chiropractic, podcasts when you're driving along instead of listening
submerge yourself in chiropractic.
Submerge yourself. Okay. And then obviously those couple of books, really helpful, on my wish list for Christmas coming up. So if anyone wants to get me them, yeah. And that's really nice. The bit of if you had to pin it down to one piece of advice, say you saw yourself in the corridor, year 1 Johnny walking along with his backpack. If you could pull him aside and give him one bit of advice, one sentence, what would you say?
So I have to admit, I have a little bit of a head start. I ask a very similar question, and I'm in a I'm very fortunate the way things have played out, and I've enjoyed it the whole way through. Like, there's not a huge amount of it that I would change. However, for advice, I would certainly say to utilize my time at college probably a little bit better than I did.
Yeah.
Also having like the mindset of, yeah, I really need to get through this. So there's no point in getting into my mind that this isn't how I want to work eventually. Like, you need to get through those hoops and get out. But also, like, the things that really changed things for me and sent me on what I'm pretty glad was the path I went on is, like I said, just getting out of the bubble. Because it's so easy that you get caught up in certain things in college, and there's exams. I know it's stressful and it's hard, but the reality is, like, you're there so that you can become a great chiropractor. Now, the great bit is what we need to work on as individuals. The chiropractor is the hoops that you're going to jump through from the college. So it's like how do you want to spend it? Now, make sure that you can get through is the first one, because there's no point in being great if you haven't got chiropractor behind it. But then after that, it's a lot of hard work to it. Like, it's finding ways as well to I don't want anybody in the current colleges to do the amount of work that I've done. There has to be ways to cut that down. So attending seminars, you're effectively learning what they've learned over their X amount of years and study in one area in a day or a couple of hours. So attending seminars is huge. Finding courses. I mean, it's amazing now how many online courses there are. This was never a thing when I was a wee and graduating college, but now it's an amazing opportunity, amazing time to graduate, let alone there's so many jobs.
There are so many jobs.
People can't find enough chiropractors, which on a completely offshoot is one of the amazing things that I think, if people are listening to this, ultimately you're at college to get this job and help people. But if you can spend a bit of time understanding chiropractic philosophy and what chiropractic is to you, that will really cut you apart when you're going to look for jobs. Like, I probably get 3 to 5 emails a month asking me if I know of any chiropractic students that are interested in jobs. But what people want is someone who's excited to become a chiropractor. They want someone who's really interested in it, but also someone that's willing to realize that there's a lot of hard work to put in at the start. So if you can, the hard work is the easy bit. If you can be interested in chiropractic and be able to hold a conversation about with somebody that you're going to go work for, I can assure you, you'll be very close to the front of the queue for getting that job that you want.
Mm. Wow, that's a pretty good bit of advice. Whilst you're here, I think it's rude not to ask you about the chiropractic why as a whole. Obviously, you've got the podcast, you've got the course. Talk to us a little bit. Why did you start the Chiropractic Why podcast?
Perfect. So I, kind of like I said, started working, realized I didn't really know everything or know enough, because obviously you're never going to know everything. That's chiropractic. But so I just started learning a lot of chiropractic philosophy stuff, reading seminars, try and call people, work through loads of study stuff. And it was like a long process. And I ended up in the end doing some further stuff through Sherman College on chiropractic philosophy. And for me, it made such a huge difference in my practice that I kind of felt like it would be a little bit rude not to share this with other people. And then fortunately, through the process of setting up the course and working with lots of sort of newly graduated chiropractors or chiropractors that have been out in the field for a while, you could really see a huge difference in their lives and their practice when they really knuckled down to what is chiropractic, what is chiropractic philosophy, why do we do something, what is that why behind everything. And that kind of infused it. So now we've ended up where we have an online 10 module course. People can just log in. We help walk you through that. You have calls with us to make sure that you get a really good understanding of everything, that you can communicate as well in your practice to really make some difference in the community. And then I suppose the podcast was a bit of an offshoot of that. I'm very fortunate I get to meet some incredible chiropractors and characters and some amazing stories. And at the time, there wasn't a huge amount of sort of material or content or whatever you want to call it about chiropractic philosophy. It was all very either science or art driven. And for me, chiropractic philosophy played such a huge part in the chiropractor that I am now and the chiropractor that I want to become, that it felt silly not to get it out there in a really easy, digestible way. So effectively, we've built a course that saves somebody the sort of 5 to 10 years of going to all of these seminars, and hopefully it gives people a platform where, you know, they can really learn a lot very quickly. And that's certainly something we've seen with our students, but also be able to implement it to make their lives better and their clinic better.
Sounds amazing. And it's like you say, it's such a noble thing. Podcasts in general are just so giving.
I don't know about noble. There's definitely some it's never a bad thing to put more content out there.
Well, exactly.
About completely noble. I don't want to.
But it's the free. It's like I've learned so much from listening to podcasts, including the Chiropractic Why, and it's without that and the chiropractic, I don't know, just the profession as a whole and all the other podcasts and everything else that I've learned, I would never have started this podcast if it wasn't for the fact that you've gone out there, done a podcast before and reinforced all these the other podcasts that have inspired me. It's just, and it's interesting because it goes full circle because of you taking that leap and putting it out there and being like, look, everyone needs to hear this. I'm now in a way doing the same thing. And I'm saying, well, I want to know why you did that and give all the bloody students some advice. All you successful chiropractors, like we want to pick your brains.
But I do think this is an amazing project. And I think it's like almost the easiest way to get out of the bubble.
Yeah, this is what I'm hoping. Like it took me until year 3. It took me until year 3 to get outside the bubble, and I never looked back. Like, you're fear-mongered out of it. Year 1 and year 2, I was like 45-minute appointments. I'm going to McTimoney only, no x-rays because x-rays are the devil, closed room, and that'll be it. And then like I came outside the university, year 3, started digesting all this stuff, and I was like, holy, what chiropractic profession is so vast. Like, it just broadens your horizon ridiculously.
Definitely.
Amazing. I think that's a nice way to finish the podcast. So again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you, is it okay for people to contact you? How do we do this?
Definitely. So if people want to get in touch, our Instagram is at the Chiropractic Y. You can check us out, give us a follow, give us a like. We've just launched some chiropractic clothing, so you can check that as well. It's thoughtapparel.store. And yeah, if you just want to inbox me on there, we've got a Facebook, the Chiropractic Y. You can get in touch. I'll be more than happy to chat to any students, and if there's anything I can help with, I'm always here to help.
Amazing. Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone else for listening, and we'll see you next time.
No worries. Thanks, Luce.